Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Booming with Bella. I am your host, Bella Lainez. As you can see, I got a haircut. Just like I said I would. If you tuned into our previous episode on Shakira and J-Lo's Super Bowl halftime performance, which was a audio only episode, I talked about how I was that day going to record this episode, but then I was like, I'm getting my hair cut, so it's gonna be all nice and pretty, one less thing for me to do. I might as well record this video episode then. Before I get into today's episode, because today's episode is one that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but some things have been happening in real time, so I've been pushing it a minute. But make sure you are following at Booming with Bella on all social platforms, as well as you are subscribed to the YouTube channel if you're not already watching on it. But if you are watching on it, go ahead and hit that subscribe and like button. And if you are listening to this episode, go ahead and follow along wherever you are currently listening, so you never miss a Booming with Bella episode ever. Now, today's episode is on Gucci Mane, and I'm not necessarily going to go as deep into Gucci Mane as I would like to do at some point, but most importantly, I want to talk about this phase that he's in, this era, I guess, episodes, which is all about mental health and discussing his bipolar disorder diagnosis. So trigger warning, mental health, substance abuse, violence. But I want to talk about this album, the memoir, and my experience meeting him, as well as what's going on with him right now. But I do think the big thing, the overarching why you should tune into this episode kind of statement is that I think that this is a very vulnerable era or state that we are seeing him in, and one that is unlike a lot of artists in his genre and of his age demographic to share. That has made it kind of admirable for me, and I've also learned so much, and it has impacted how I view him and how I see the Gucci Mane that I used to know. I said that in air quotation marks if you're not watching. And love, and what I thought I knew. So we're gonna kind of touch upon all these things in this episode. I do want to talk about the album first. Everything dropped around the same time, 10/17. Duh. He only ever releases on October 17th nowadays. It's been that way for like 5 or so years. We kind of knew this album was coming because he had dropped a couple singles here and there. What I didn't know, I guess, was necessarily how tied into the memoir it would be. Come to find out, it's basically the same. I actually remember liking this album, and it's also called Episodes. That was not necessarily new for me because I liked his Breath of Fresh Air album before this, but not as much as I liked this one. I remember, and I've talked about this in the podcast before, but I was decided to take it easy in my workout and just do my own arm workout, because usually I do a Peloton class and I just prop myself up and I get my weights and I start going at it. But this day I was like, no, I'm kind of gonna take it easy. It's a Friday, whatever, I'm just gonna do a light lift. So I played this album as I was lifting, and I really enjoyed it. And one, it helped me get through the lift so much easier, but I also, a couple times as I was listening, I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this song, or oh, I like what he's doing here. I would say out of probably since 2019 when he released East Atlanta Santa 3, I would say I like this one out of everything else since then. The most. I like this one the most out of everything else since then. My favorite songs were Savage, So Icy, Preferences. Voices isn't that bad, and I'm gonna pull up the album right now just to make sure I'm not missing any favorites of mine. Oh, Psycho. Psycho's not bad. Rich Man Problems. You Don't Love Me with Sexy Red I actually ended up liking more than I expected. But I would say those are my favorites. Definitely So Icy and Savage being the most so, because I really like the hook in Savage, and I really liked how he says, it's a bird, it's a plane, no, it's Gucci Mane in So Icy. Lyrically, it's still like a little bit of witty Gucci Mane. Some of the songs are more profound, more mature in topics than others, specifically like Voices, Beautiful Nightmares, songs like that. He's talking about his battle with mental health and his bipolar disorder. Whereas other songs, they're along the same lyrical content of Gucci Mane from like 2005, 2006, 2008, 2014, 2019. Yeah. But he's still really witty. Like, he says things and I'm like, why would he say that? But in a good way. Because it's just like, that's so silly of him and so different, and that's what's always made him stand out, is his liners, just how he says the most outlandish things and gets away with it. Essentially is what it is. There was one time where I was kind of like, we're in your 40s, you don't need to be saying that. But for the most part, I walked away and I was like, okay, I like this song. I enjoy this. Add it to playlist, whatever. I didn't walk away thinking that like it was a terrible album or, you know, he's so old, why is he still rapping about these things? Like, I think there was a good balance to it and a little bit more experimentation than his last albums have kind of showed. So I think there was some growth in that. I think honestly, like for him at this point, music is like the last thing on his mind for a multitude of reasons. I would say that from what I see and my perception of like the moves that he's made is it's family, his record label, business, and then writing, and then music kind of is just like a, that takes me 2 seconds, I can do that whenever sort of thing. So I was pleasantly surprised with this album. I've gone back to some of the songs more often than I expected. And this is coming from a girl who's a huge Gucci fan, always puts him in her top favorite rappers. And I say that because I've talked about my love for him and his story and how I read his autobiography 5 times. And in college, when we had to do like a to B speech or whatever it is, like, I don't know, you had to tell a story of something. I did mine on Gucci Mane and I told his story to my entire class. Just really probably funny. Like looking back on it as like this little girl, me, getting up in front of an audience and being like, so, let me tell you about the story of Gucci Mane. And having to explain the concoction that is lean to my professor. I got an A+. Like literally, I think I got 100 on that speech. I did so well. Anyways, I've loved Gucci Mane because one, been able to stand out in the genre in his own weird way. And every time I listen to his old music, there's always a line that makes me giggle. It's really catchy. As crazy as he might be rapping, the hooks are always so catchy. Whether it's him or the producer, so catchy. Zaytoven is a key god. And I think the combination of him and Zaytoven for so many years and through so many bodies of work is what makes them so distinct and is how that they progressively both got better. It's just because they work so well together. So to continuing to like use that magic, just only more beautifulness was made. I just always really thought it was fun. I always really enjoyed it. Lyrics were really unique. The more I started listening, the more I liked. When I read his autobiography, I was really impressed because he was straight up. Tells you everything that or at the time, he told you everything he was comfortable with telling you. Like, he pretty much just tells you everything. Some things you have to kind of like read between the lines of it, use your better judgment. Other times, like, he'll tell you things, but in this memoir, he goes a lot deeper and is a lot more reflective. In that, it's like straight up like, here's what I did, here's how this happened, here's what I remember, and here's how I eventually turned my life around. That's kind of what I liked, was one, seeing how he's always been business mindset. He always had goals to be further along in the business. You could tell when reading it that he had a lot of struggles and he had a lot of like internalized situations that impacted him cognitively. Whether he could make the connection back then or just reading the book, you can kind of be like, okay, well, I could see how that could turn into that. It was just reflective, and he was like, you know, it got to a point. It got to a breaking point, and here's when the switch flipped for me. And this is what I did going forward from there, and you know, what I want for my future. I think it's just a really entertaining book. Him and the authors that he's written with do a really good job of storytelling. I've really enjoyed it. I recommend it if you've never read it before. And then also episodes. So we have 2 things to talk about here. I never fully told you, I mean, I told you on TikTok, but I never fully told you the story of me meeting Gucci Mane for this book. I knew that he was coming to New York. He had a concert at the Brooklyn Bowl. And I knew that he was also doing a book signing. Like, I saw the 2 things kind of happening. He was also doing promo. Like, he did a couple shows. I listened to the Breakfast Club's interview of him, and I listened to Big Facts. I really liked the Big Facts one. Felt like he was a bit more candid, a bit more casual and relaxed in that one. I thought that those were really good interviews, that they shed more light onto what Episodes is and what it's about before I had listened to the album. I knew he had the concert, and I knew he had a book signing. And I thought about going to the book signing, but I was like, I read the description, it was gonna say no photos and it was just a signing, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go all the way there when I've ordered the Gucci Mane Guide to Greatness, which is like his mantra book, and I ordered that already pre-autographed. Like if I can just do that for episodes, I'll just do that, like whatever. I wasn't gonna go to the concert because the ticket prices were just absurd. So I was like, I'm not. Sorry, Gucci Mane, I love you, but I just saw you last year in Vegas for free. So I'm not gonna pay I think it was like $180 for like GA, and I was like, I'm not, no, sorry. And then I was kind of going back and forth, and I was talking in my family group chat about it, and they were like, I can't believe you're not going. And I was like, I know, but like, eh. And then I think it got close around to the time where I would have to leave if I wanted to go, and I was like, I should just go. Maybe he'll change his mind. Maybe he'll do pictures, or I don't know. It would be at least cool to be like, I saw him up close. Mind you, I was still in my workout clothes from the gym. I had not showered yet. I had not changed. I kind of regret that, but it's fine. I was like, well, you'll see I'm active. I'm getting on the subway. I'm still debating buying the ticket. I'm like, I don't know, like if I get there and there's a long line, like, eh. I'm like, who am I kidding? Literally, who am I kidding? And so I buy the ticket. I get there, there's not a long line at all. They let us into the Barnes & Noble on 5th Ave. And people are talking and they're like, I wonder if you'll let us do pictures, blah, blah, blah. And they start talking to one of the associates and she's like, well, last time he was here, he originally said no pictures, but then like he was like, yeah, we'll do pictures. She was like, maybe, but like he's also not personalizing, so I don't know. 10 minutes go by or whatever, and it's getting closer to when the time where like he sits there and people are gonna start coming in. And the clerk comes back and she's got post-its and she's asking everyone how they spell their name. They finally get to like my group or whatever, and she goes, he is personalizing and he is willing to take pictures. Have your phones ready, you know, how do you spell your name, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, oh my God. I start texting my friends. I'm like, he's taking pictures, he's personalizing. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna say. I don't wanna sound cheesy or anyway, but it's like, dude, I love you. You're one of my favorite rappers. And I was just like, I don't know what I say. Like, I'm just a little, like, I literally kept feeling, I was like, I'm literally just a little girl. No one in the line was remotely close to my age. And I was like, I feel like a fish out of water. This is one of my favorite artists. Asking my friends, I'm like, what do I say? The line starts going. Eventually it gets to be my turn. I have my phone out. I wish I like did something to my posture, because the entire time I'm literally like talking to him like this. All I did was I told him that I really liked the album. I was like, I want to let you know I already listened to the album, really liked it, I'm excited to read your book. I'm shaking, by the way. I did not think I would be so nervous. Literally shaking. And he's like, oh my God, thank you. By the way, diamonds dancing. That was the other thing. I kept getting distracted by his jewelry. I was being blinded. His wife Keisha was also there, and I wanted to, like, if I had the opportunity, but she was kind of hanging out in the back, I would have been like, you also are so cool. You've built how many businesses at this point, not fully learned, but had heard through the interviews and stuff, like fully caring for this man through his mental breakdowns and episodes, and like managed to be so resilient throughout. I didn't get the chance to tell her that. I have the book here, if you are watching. He signed it for me. It literally just says, to Isabella, much love, stay icy, Gucci. 1017, underlined. So cool. And then I got a picture with him, which I'll paste here. Literally was so nervous. I always talk so much game to myself, and I'm like, you want to be around these people, you want to be interviewing them, like, so act like it. And then I get in front of them and I'm like, hello. It was really nice. I mean, at least to me, he was really kind. I mean, I was only talking to him for like a minute max. It was really cool. I'm really glad I went, because not only did I get the book, got it signed, personalized, and I got a picture with him. And I got to like speak to him. Like, he got to see my face, associate my name to this face, and me say, hey, I really liked your album. Like, I liked your body of work that you just put out. And I think that's good. So the book I actually really liked. Not only do you just get a different perspective on him and the things that we saw in the media, or that were pasted about him in the media, or the narratives that were spun, or the story of him getting the ice cream tattoo. And it's like everyone thought this was the coolest thing ever, when it's like in reality he got that tattoo because he was numb. He couldn't feel anything, so he wanted to do the most painful thing he thought possible to see if he could feel it. And we just thought it was a meme. So I thought like that was kind of cool, and just to like see how he recounts memories where things triggered him, then all of a sudden like the book reflects itself. It's like lights literally went out. I don't know what happened in this time. I only know what people have told me. He talks about his episodes up until like 2020. He talks about usually what triggers them and like the fears that he has and what kind of causes him to spiral. He talks about how things that he experienced as a child now he kind of realizes have affected his mental stability and actions later on in life, things that happened with his family. Because like in his first autobiography, he does not talk about his mother a lot. Very briefly, but it's more in like a, my mom didn't want me dealing, I was dealing, so I had to hide my like cool shoes and stuff that I bought from her. But in this, he talks about how she was stealing from him. Tried to put him under a conservatorship so she could take his money, and she was often in debt because she would spend the money that he gave her, and he just distrusted her because of that. How he always had this fear of robbing, but then also he was robbing people at the same time, but it was a big fear for him. A lot of the time when he started going down those routes, a lot of it was his fears like, they're gonna come for me, they're gonna rob me, they're gonna, you know, hurt me, they're gonna do this, they're gonna steal from me. That was like what the voice was telling him, whether it was true or not. But he lived in a lot of fear, in a state of fear, it sounds like constantly. It didn't help that he had a lot of people around him who were taking advantage of him and taking advantage of his mental state, and he even acknowledges that. He was like, I was not around the right people. The right people saw how out of control I was getting and no longer wanted to be around me. And he's like, I can't fault them for that. He's like, but I wish I hadn't gone so down the hole that I was blatantly being taken advantage of by these other people, or that these other people would see how unwell he is and not do anything about that. And he talks about a lot of the falling outs that he's had and how he's had to rectify and build those relationships back up, especially because his Twitter rants are something that was so, I mean, we've all seen that, whether we've seen it, the Shade Room post about it, or we're scrolling on Twitter and then all of a sudden you see 20 tweets from Gucci Mane. He's talked about that. He's talked about how he's had to apologize to people and rebuild those relationships after that, and how now his wife, if he's ever getting to that state, she locks him out of all social medias and takes his phone. How some of his friends, like, they can tell that it's not him actually, and they'll block his number so he can't keep texting him. And it's interesting because some of his friends are interviewed in this book. His wife Keisha has a whole passage where she talks about the last big episode that he had and kind of what she did and how she was able to learn the signs and the triggers and, you know, put things in motion, put a plan in motion to help him when he gets like that. His friends were interviewed and some of them have acknowledged that like they didn't really know what to do back then in this early 2000s. No one really knew how to properly deal with people who suffered from schizophrenia and bipolar disorder that were also like in the scene like that, like he was. And one of his other friends that does have bipolar disorder also talked about it from his perspective and his experiences and how him and Gucci can kind of relate to each other. And the other thing that they talk about a lot in relation to how it affected his mental health and his disorders was the criminal justice system and the music industry, and not really supporting him as a individual with mental health issues, severe ones, and how the criminal justice system kind of just kept locking him up instead of forcing him into treatment or forcing him into some sort of treatment plan, because he would go, they would put him in a hospital, but he would be there for like a day and then they would discharge him. So I actually just told you a lot about what's in the book, but I learned a lot about it, and I thought that he was being extremely vulnerable in this, more so than he was in the autobiography. It feels like the autobiography was kind of like a scratch the surface, and this he's going deeper, and he's like, so I talked about this, but actually let's unpack that further. Why that situation happened, what triggered it, how I felt afterwards, how that influenced the next few incidents following. Not always just about me, but like the other people in my life. How did it affect them? Who was saying what? What about my relationship with this person did not help the situation? Stuff like that. So I thought he was being very vulnerable. He took a lot of accountability. I think that you can like kind of see how his brain works almost a little bit and like understand it more and kind of understand his diagnoses more, you know, how their brain operates, what they think, because he's bearing it all. So I recommend, whether you're a fan of him or not, whether you like him or not, I honestly think that it's a very raw book, and there's just a lot to learn about people and the human mind. He's talked about how he does want to do a movie. I think it would be kind of cool, or like a docu-series. I could get behind that. But another part about the book that was kind of sad is he talked about one of his artists, Big Scar, who has passed away in 2022, who kind of dealt with the same thing and was addicted to drugs, and another artist, Enchanting, who was signed to his label, who passed away, I want to say early 2023 or late 2023. Mid-2023, she passed away not too long after Big Scar passed away. He talks a lot about his conversations with Big Scar and how he wanted to try to be a mentor for him. In his interviews leading up to the press, he talked a lot about Pooh Shiesty and a lot about Fujiano and how he wanted to be there for them and the plans that he had following their release, like to get them in the studio to start recording new music, all that stuff. A couple weeks ago, I noticed that he's a little silent. I noticed that he kind of went dark. Now, hindsight 2020, that I read the book, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe an episode got triggered or something, like Keisha locked him out of his socials. You know, I'm like, oh, what's going on? I want to say the news broke in April that Pooh Shiesty and his father robbed Gucci Mane. And at first, I was kind of like, is this AI? Like, is this headline AI? Like, I didn't know to believe it because I was like, that's kind of weird. They rob him, and 2, you just left jail. Wouldn't you like not want to violate your probation? Eventually gets confirmed that it happened. Gucci Mane ends up filing a police report, and this sparks a lot of online discourse. I mean, a lot. It hasn't really been confirmed that he had filed a police report, that he had talked to the FBI and said, yeah, Pooh Shiesty and so-and-so robbed me. But what had happened was it was a record deal meeting gone wrong. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of talk about 1017 and Gucci Mane's label and the curse, and I don't know, maybe he's just not picking the right people or he doesn't have the right vision. But the thing is, like, they're good. Just the longevity isn't always there. And unfortunately, in the past few, like right off the bat, when he announced the first class, Pooh Shiesty, Fujiano were the main stars, and they ended up going to jail. Then it was Big Scar and Enchanting, and they were suffering behind the scenes, and now they're no longer with us. And that's what started the 1017 curse. There's been a lot of talk, and I'm sure Pooh heard some things and maybe decided that he didn't want to be a part of 1017 anymore, but that hadn't maybe necessarily gotten back to Gucci yet. They had their meeting. By the way, this is all speculation. I know nothing. I'm just a fan that's analyzing a situation. The meeting happens, turns left real fast. Gucci Mane ends up filing a police report. Online discourse starts happening. Pooh Shiesty gets arrested, and so does his father. And then last week of April, or second to last week of April, I believe, Gucci Mane releases the diss track Crash Dummy, basically talking about the whole situation. And then this sparked more online discourse. So now everyone's calling Gucci a rat. No, he must be a clone, blah, 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 all this stuff. The old Gucci, you know, the real Gucci wouldn't ever do this. But then on the flip, the other side of the conversation was, this is a 43, 44-year-old man. He's got 2 kids. He's been long separated from the kind of life that Pooh Shiesty is still involved in. That's just not who he is anymore. He just did this whole thing talking about his mental health. He's had to separate himself and prioritize his mental health because of that. And also, if Pooh Shiesty stole thousands of dollars or millions of dollars worth of jewelry off of you, you have to file a police report in order to get the insurance. And so that's kind of the 2 sides of the coin, as you're kind of like, okay, well, this isn't, you know, 25-year-old Gucci Mane anymore. This is family man, 40-something-year-old Gucci Mane. So what did you want him to do? You know, because if he acted one way, you would have been like, you're 40 something, why are you still behaving like this, or how you're supposed to be a mentor to these kids when you're doing the same thing. But then, you know, also, you were the Gucci Mane. Why are you going to the FBI? I don't know, it's a fine line. He did what he felt was best for him. The diss track, like, it's not amazing. It's no truth. It's no, I mean, it's kind of like, No Diddy or whatever, the diss track he did against Diddy. Basically just calling Diddy a weirdo and being like, this is why I never hung out with you, because you're weird. And I knew it. It's just kind of like him making a statement about the situation, because he was like, well, I'm not really gonna say anything else. I'm not gonna post anything. I'm not gonna go on a rant. I'm just gonna do it this way. I mean, hey, on May 8th, xoxo pled not guilty. It's a lot of conversation, because a lot of people are saying was like, well, was his dad in his ear? His dad orchestrating the whole thing? It's not fair. His dad should have known better. Like, he shouldn't have gone with Pooh to do this, like, literally not long after Pooh had been released from prison, because now he's gonna go back. Could now, if he is indicted, could face life. It's not really my place to say anything about the matter, but that is what is being discussed. Those are the two sides. The situation is unraveling in real time. Gucci Mane is still pretty much off of social medias, aside from just promoting his concert. I will say that seeing this news did kind of make me sad after hindsight of reading episodes, because his biggest fear was being robbed and being betrayed by people he trusted. And that is exactly what happened here. I remember my sister was asking me about it, and I was like, well, he's been off of social media. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if a bipolar episode was triggered. I feel kind of sad if so, because his main triggers were this fear, and this was basically that fear validated and come to life. I wouldn't be surprised if an episode had gotten triggered. It seemed like he had come a long way and made a lot of headway and progress in dealing with his mental illness, and then just for this to happen, really took advantage of his vulnerability at this time. Alas, that is what's going on currently. That is what's been going on with Gucci Mane's episodes. Again, I do really recommend listening to the album and reading the book. I think if you had to choose one, I would go with the book and the two songs, Savage and So Icy, if that's the most I can convince you to do. That's really all I had to talk about today. Again, I do want to do a further, I'll sit down and I'll tell you guys all my favorite things about Gucci Mane, tell you a little bit more about, like, do a kind of a biography episode on him. For now, I just wanted to tell you the story of the time that I met Gucci Mane. Also do a recap on the book and the album and what's happening in pop culture surrounding his name. It's been more than it has been in a minute. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember to follow @BoomingWithBella on all social media, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that like button if you're currently watching, and comment if you like my haircut. I'm gonna be tanner, so it's gonna look even better, but this is just so I have less of a mane to drag around and some brighter colors. But I digress, and make sure you're following Booming with Bella wherever you get your podcasts, and tune into the audio only episodes. March and April were rough months for me, guys. They always are. Those are like my two least favorite months out of every year. It's always like a weird transition. I'm not feeling too hot. Like, it's just always the worst. So that is why there was a bit of a hiatus from the video episodes. But there were quite a few audio-only episodes, so make sure that you are caught up on those. Okay? Thank you guys so much for tuning in again. Love you. Bye. Stay icy. I had to.